Okay, hi everybody. I'm unmuted. I'm allowed to speak.
Apologies.
Very happy, very happy to be here with everybody, and really excited to be part of the Devi experience. I know that there's a lot of parents out there right now who are just either struggling or looking for more tools to put in your toolbox, or just in general trying to figure out how to be the best parent out there to your child. All of those are going to be addressed and absolutely appropriate for what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to share my screen. Thumbs up, Pooja, you can see me? You can see my screen? All right, wonderful. So what we're going to be doing is really talking about the why your child is engaging in fill in the blank, why your child is hitting you, why your child is kissing you, why your child is, laying on the floor of the supermarket, screaming his or her head off. And oftentimes we are really good at giving solutions to the problem, right? Oh, if your child does X, you should do Y. If your child goes A, you should do B. But it's really important to take a step back from that and first ask why. Why is my child engaging in this behavior? And the truth is, there's really only 4 reasons. We're going to talk extensively about 3 of them because they're the 3 major ones, but there really are only 4 reasons. And if you can figure out one of those 4 reasons why your child might be engaging in the behavior, then you have more knowledge and more power and more tools at your disposal to figure out what to do about it. And that's the important piece. So we're going to talk about how to figure out the why, and again, why that's important. So let's jump in. And any questions that you have along the way, I definitely want to make sure that there is a lot of time at the end to address some questions that you might have. So jot it down, write it down, throw it in the chat box, and I can at the end make sure that I go through those to address how this might impact your child directly. The first question I always ask is, what is the purpose of behavior? Especially if we're talking about younger children. What does behavior do? What is the function of it? What does it help us realize? For younger children, for older children, it's a form of communication. It is a way that your child is trying to communicate with the world around them. And so when you think about it from that perspective, your child isn't just being bad, right? No child is bad. Maybe perhaps there are behaviors that I don't like, and there's other behaviors I would prefer to see, but it really is a form of communication. So if you see your child's behavior through this lens specifically, it really can hopefully also give you a little bit more patience for what's going on. And it's not that your child is just trying to be a horrible kid. They are trying to communicate with you and tell you what is going on and tell you their needs and tell you their wants. So if you can understand what they're trying to communicate with you, again, then you can figure out what to do. So the purpose of your child's behavior, from that tantrum to that hug, from that, slap across the face to kicking the dog, it is trying to tell you something. And let's figure out together what that something is. The way we usually talk about it in the behavioral world is trying to figure out the function of that behavior. Again, the underlying reason of why. What is your child trying to communicate? Why is your child engaging in that behavior? And again, it's important to differentiate because your child could hit for a number of reasons. And oftentimes, it doesn't matter to me if they're hitting, if they're kicking, if they're screaming, if they're tantruming, if they're spitting, if they're cursing. It doesn't matter to me when I first am working with a child of what the behavior is exactly. I want to know the why. The why is going to tell me what your child's need is and how we can then change the behavior by figuring out that need. So it really is the function of the behavior. We have to figure out the why of that behavior occurring. And like I said, I mentioned at the beginning, there's really only 4 reasons why, mostly 3 that your children are going to engage in a behavior for. Now, the secret also is that most of us engage in behaviors also basically for these 3 or 4 reasons. So hopefully you can get some, a little bit of insight to yourself, maybe into your parents, into a partner, into your children. But it really is the functions, the underlying reasons of all human behavior. So the first is to gain access. You might see this in your child when you're at the supermarket and they're trying to grab one of the candy bars and they start screaming when you say no, or potentially it's time to turn off the electronics or the iPad and they start screaming because they don't want it, right? We engage in behaviors to gain access to something, okay? I want something, I'm going to engage in a behavior to get access to that something. The second one is to get out of tasks, right? Now, hold on, I'm going to push pause here and go back. It's important to think of how we do this also as adults, right? I engage in behaviors to get access to things all the time, right? I will work so that I can have money, so that I can then pay for my house, pay for my groceries, pay for my car, right? Pay for new clothes, whatever it is. We also, as adults, engage in behaviors to gain access to something, right? Or if you're sitting on the couch at the end of a long day, right? You ask your kid, you ask maybe a child, hey, do you mind getting me some water? Do you mind getting me a soda? Do you mind getting me some popcorn, right? We engage in behaviors to gain access to something. Moving on, number 2, to get out of tasks, right? I don't want to do my homework. I don't want to do my chores. I don't want to go walk the dog. So I am going to engage in these behaviors. I don't want to brush my teeth. So I'm going to engage in all these behaviors to get out of doing something. Okay. I engage in these behaviors all the time. Let's say that there's a whole bunch of dishes to be done. I will say something like, I have to go buy some milk. We don't have any milk for tomorrow. Honey, why don't you do the dishes? I'm going to go make sure I get the milk that I know the kids like. So, I'll be back in a little bit. So we as adults, again, do this also. We engage in behaviors to get out of doing something that is less preferred. And then the third main reason, and this is a really important one, we're going to talk about this a little bit more in depth, is to get attention, right? You're on the phone, the kids are screaming in the background, they're pulling on you, they're hitting you, they're slapping you because they want your attention right now. They don't want to wait for you to finish that phone call. They want your attention now, right? And so children can engage in problem behavior to get access to attention. Again, we also engage in behaviors to get access to attention, right? Maybe you're going out, in the world where we used to go out all the time. Let's think back, maybe, a year ago. Maybe you got dressed up for an anniversary. Maybe you got dressed up for a birthday. You put on some makeup. You put on a nice outfit because you're looking for someone to say, wow, first of all, you want yourself to look nice. But, maybe you're looking for your partner to say, wow, honey, you look really nice tonight. Or you appreciate when a boss will say, wow, you did an excellent job on that project that we were all working on together. So again, we also as adults engage in behaviors to get access to attention from other people. Now, this is all fine and good. It's important to know that it is totally appropriate to engage in behaviors to gain access to something, to get out of doing something, and to get attention. Those are appropriate needs and wants of your child. So it's important to remember that that's not a pathology, that's not a horrible thing. It just is ways that our needs can be met. And when we think about it, if your child wants a candy bar at the grocery store, if your child wants to get out of doing homework, if your child wants your attention, they could engage in any of these behaviors that I have here up on my slides, but there are other options. Okay, it's appropriate your child wants these things. There are other options, right? So instead of just screaming and crying, I want a snack, I need some food, I'm so hungry. Your child could say something like, Mommy, I haven't had a candy bar in a really long time. Do you mind if we buy one today? I mean, what parent would say no to that, right? They could ask appropriately. They could ask with a really nice manners, in a calm tone, right? I used to do, unfortunately, all of my children were born at very helpful times along my graduate school career. So they unfortunately were all of my guinea pigs. So I would see this with my oldest when we were in the kitchen, right? She would scream to me, I want water. It was totally appropriate that she wanted water. I would have given her water, no problem, but not if she's screaming at me, right? So I would just continue to wash the dishes or sweep the floor, whatever. I want water, I want water. And at some point over time, she realized I just wasn't going to respond to her. So she would resort to, Mommy, can I have water, please? To which I said, yeah, of course. Here's your water. There you go. As opposed to when her father was in the kitchen and she'd scream, I want water. And his response was, what color do you want? Do you want the pink cup? Do you want the purple cup? What color do you want? Yeah. I'll get it for you. Quick. What color? Right? It was so anxiety provoking for him. He just wanted the screaming to stop. Right? So it's important to remember that the underlying reason for the behavior is generally appropriate. It is totally fine that she wants water. It's just not appropriate for her to scream or whine or yell at me to get a cup of water. It's just more important. It's more adaptive for her to be able to ask me kindly and nicely for that cup of water. If we're talking about trying to get out of tasks, right? If your child has homework to do and really just doesn't want to do it, instead of breaking a pencil, ripping up the paper, throwing it away, right? What if he or she were to say, Mom, I had a really long day at school. Can I just have a break for 20 minutes and then I'll start my homework? Sounds reasonable, right? That sounds good to me, as opposed to engaging in the fight. Now, same thing, we're trying to get out of tasks or chores. Mom, I don't want to do my chore right now, but I promise I'll do it in the morning. Is that okay? Sure. I would give most kids the opportunity to, do that once. And if they trick me once, shame on you. Trick me twice, shame on me. But to give an opportunity at least to engage in that, if there is an adaptive way that they are asking for that underlying need to be met. Okay. And then the third, right? To get attention, to ask for help, maybe, to ask for a hug, maybe, but to try to get access to that attention in a more adaptive way than just screaming or hitting or throwing. Now, we're going to talk about attention a little bit more in the next slide, because generally we see a lot of problem behaviors with around this attention piece, because we're human beings and human beings love attention. We are social creatures and that's what we like. So I said I would talk about 4. So the 4th reason for behavior, it's not on my slides, is because it generally doesn't have much to do with problem behavior. The 4th reason for behaving is, you can see these 3 here all have to do with the environment, right? I want something in the environment. I want to get out of doing something in the environment, or I want your attention and you are in the environment. The 4th reason for a lot of human behavior, it doesn't have to do with the outside environment. It has to do with internal motivation, right? Think of it more as like a habit, right? Nail biting, singing in the shower, tapping your foot. I just sort of happen to like it because it's I like it. And it has nothing, if I were in a room by myself with nothing around, I might still engage in that behavior. So that is less relevant to most kids. Usually if we're talking about tantruming behavior or problem behavior, it doesn't really have to do with that force. No one really likes to cry just for the sake of crying. Especially when we're talking about young kids. Maybe as adults, it's an emotional release. But when we're talking about younger kids, it's usually access to get one of these 3 reasons here, and that 4th reason isn't there. So we're going to focus on these 3 during our presentation on this. So I said we're going to focus a little bit more on attention. And this is really important because we love our children, right? It comes down to the fact that we love our children and our kids know it. They are fully aware that we really want them to succeed. And so it's important to think of how this hierarchy of attention goes along, because what do we as humans generally like? Positive attention. Wow, you did so nicely on that test. Ooh, that dress looks so nice. Wow, your hair is super on point today. You did a great job on that assignment. We all love attention, and we all generally love positive attention. Okay, we like being told that we did a good job, that we're smart, that we're good, that we're right. That's what humans do. We like positive attention. It makes us feel confident in ourselves. It makes us feel good about ourselves. But what if your child in the moment cannot get positive attention? If you in that moment cannot give your child positive attention, what's going to happen? They'll settle for what they can get. They'll go for that negative attention. Stop doing that. Why are you hitting your brother? I don't like that. Right. Anytime you get like the finger out and you feel like you have to finger wag, that's the negative attention or the guilt, right? I'm sure many of us in this Zoom could lay on the guilt pretty thick. So that's where that negative attention comes into play, right? If they can't get that positive attention, kids will generally go for negative attention. I'll take anything I can get. If you're not going to give me a hug, then I'd rather have you yell at me, because what's the worst option for a kid from a kid's perspective is to get nothing, right? From a child's perspective, if I can't get positive attention and you're not going to give me negative attention, the worst from a child's perspective is to be ignored and to get no attention. Now, this is your goal as parents, is if your child is doing everything they can to get your attention, generally negative attention, then your job is to get rid of all that negative attention and just flip back and forth between positive attention and ignore. Positive attention and ignore, right? Your child's be asking nice, of course, you know, engaging in behaviors that you want to see, let them know that they're doing the right thing. I like the way you're sitting so nicely and just waiting for dinner. Thank you so much for helping your brother. Wow, I can't believe you walked the dog all by yourself today, right? Positive, positive, positive attention, right? Then you see your child just sort of go like this. What are they looking for? They're looking for negative attention. So just ignore it. Don't give it to them, but then jump back in with positive attention when you can. I'll give you an example of this at the dinner table. The rule is that our dinner table is there's no crying. You can be upset. You can not like what's for dinner. That is totally okay. But if you cry about it, you just can't do it at the table. It's okay to cry. Go to your room, calm down. And when you're done, come back to the table. So this happened the most to my son because he often is a little bit more picky than the rest of my children, didn't like what was for dinner, and would get really upset when he found out what was for dinner. And I'd say, no problem. It's okay to be upset. You can go to your room. You can be upset, and that's absolutely okay, right? Not telling him not to be upset. I can't control him being upset or not. I can't make him stop crying, but I can help identify where is the space for that to happen, right? Because otherwise he stayed at the table, but this is disgusting. No, it's really good. No, it's not. It's so gross. I don't like it. No, it's really good. We're getting in this back and forth, which gets us nowhere except all of us frustrated, right? So if you're upset, that's okay. You can go to the table. You can go to your room. And just to calm down, it wasn't a timeout. It wasn't a punishment. It was just a place for him to cool down. And when he would come back to the table, right? So he couldn't get any positive attention at that point because there was nothing, he wasn't engaging in the best behaviors. He was looking for some negative attention. I wasn't giving it to him. So I didn't give him any attention. He took himself out, or I helped him. I escorted him to a place where he could cry and, have those emotions, those big emotions. And then he would come back to the dinner table, right? And the first thing he did when he came back to the dinner table, I had two options to say to him. I had option one where I could say something like, see, it's not that bad. If you just stay and you calm down, then there's no point, then there's no problem for you to be here, right? You can't cry here, so why do you do it, right? That's negative attention, right? I'm giving him all that negative attention. I'd rather go for the positive attention. When he came back to the table, I would say, I'm so glad you're here because now our family's complete again. Wow, right? Even though he had a 10-minute tantrum, he was freaking out in his room for 20 minutes, he calmed down and came back out. And the first thing I said to him again was turning my light switch on. He made a good choice. He was having some more appropriate behaviors by coming out nice and calm. And I would flip the switch of attention back on and say, I'm so glad you're here and you were able to calm down. Our family is now complete. It didn't feel the same without you not here at dinner, right? That's helping him come back into the fold, right? That's giving him the positive attention when he's making a better choice, right? Ignoring the problem behavior, but bringing him back in with positive attention and trying to get rid of all of that negative attention. Okay, so this hierarchy of attention is really important. Like I said, so much of our children's behavior is based on trying to get some aspect of our attention. If they can't get positive, they will go for the jugular and try to get that negative. Try not to give it to them, right? Give them the positive attention when they're when their behaviors are showing you they're making good choices, and you can just ignore that behavior when it's not, right? Otherwise, when you give negative attention, it's really literally pouring gas onto a fire, right? And you all have probably seen this. You say one thing back and, you have a child who's like on fire and totally irrational. You're trying, even if you're calmly, no, the dinner's so nice, just try a bite. Right? It just rages that fire. It's literally pouring gas onto the fire. So this hierarchy hopefully can help you sort of conceptualize what that looks like when we're talking about the attention. So as we're summing things up, I want to make sure there's a lot of time for questions about this. When you think about your children's behavior, be compassionate and have empathy that it really is a way for them to communicate their needs to us adults. They're letting you know that they need something. If we try to understand their needs and their wants, we're trying to figure out what they can communicate with us. We can then help them show how to get those needs in more adaptive ways. Instead of screaming and yelling or having tantrums trying to get it, we can help them find it in more adaptive ways. Now, as a caveat, I'll say we'll have to do a whole nother Debbie presentation on sometimes the answer is no, like, can I have this chocolate? Sometimes the answer is no. And that's an important thing to understand. And again, that's more of a whole nother session on this that we can talk about. But the first step is to understand, why is my child engaging in these behaviors? The first step is to figure out the why, and then only then can we figure out what to do about the behavior. But I think the reason I thought it was really important to talk about this step is because so many times we just jump to the, okay, what do we do? Are we doing timeout? Are we doing consequence? Are we doing great? Well, before you figure out what to do, you have to take a step back and see if there's any patterns emerging, right? Are you seeing it generally with respect to a certain time of day? Are you seeing it generally with respect to a certain activity? Are you seeing it generally with respect to electronics, right? Try to figure out the why, because then you can be more thoughtful, right? As opposed to just using sort of like a blunt knife of like, okay, time out, okay, time out, okay, time out, okay, time out, right? Timeout works, but it's a very blunt instrument if you don't use it precisely. Right? So figuring out the why helps to be more of like a scalpel to figure out specifically and in what circumstances it's going to be the best fit, and what, first of all, proactive pieces you can put into play before the behavior even happens. And then think about what kind of consequences, positive and negative. Consequences don't always have to be negative. What consequences are going to happen after the behaviors happen? But step number one is to figure out the why. So I'm happy to open up to questions if anybody has. This is also, if you want any more information or want to follow me on Instagram, feel free to do so. But again, happy to answer any questions about this topic that would be helpful to you.
Awesome. So while we're waiting for any of you, can certainly put your questions in the chat, but quite a few of you did submit questions as part of your registration. So maybe I can jump in with a few of those while we're waiting. So one of the things you mentioned was kind of switching between positive attention and ignoring, and kind of skipping that negative layer to the extent that you can. But a lot of the questions that parents had submitted were around aggression, whether that was with, neighbors or siblings or with them. So how do you kind of use that attention hierarchy in that scenario?
Right. So again, step one is to figure out, why are they hitting? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about from each of those three reasons. Let's say I hit my sibling because I want the toy that he has, versus I hit you because I don't want to do my homework, versus I hit you because you're on the phone, right? So this is a great example where aggression, hitting someone, you have to figure out the why to figure out what to do. So let's talk about those three scenarios, right? If a child hits because I want the ball, well, that's plain and simple. You definitely don't get that ball, right?
Yeah.
You hit, you don't get it. And in fact, right, what I would do, especially there was a point when I had, like, let's say a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old at home. Name it, pick an age. I've probably had those combination of ages at my house, right? So my 2-year-old's playing with something. My 4-year-old comes over and grabs it from her because she wants to play with it, right? Well, again, I wouldn't yell, I wouldn't scream, I wouldn't give her any negative attention, right? But what I would do is, without saying anything, I took the toy away from my 4-year-old, and then I sat down with my 2-year-old, and we had a grand old time playing together, right? It was I made it a big to do. Oh, this is so fun. Now, when my 4-year-old had calmed down and she came over, I said something like, right, I gave her a script. Hey, do you want to play with us? Yeah, I want to play. Great. Can you ask, can I play with you guys? Right? I would, again, it's not that she wants a toy. That's appropriate. Totally appropriate that she wants a toy, not appropriate that she grabbed it. What's more appropriate is that she says, hey, can I play with you guys? So I helped her stick in that more adaptive behavior. And then again, what did I say? A lot of positive attention. Wow. You know what? It's so much more fun to play when you're playing with us. It wasn't as fun when you weren't playing with us, right? Bring her in. No finger wagging of, why did you take the toy? We don't take toys. That's not nice. That makes your sister feel sad. Get rid of that negative attention. You just go, you take the toy from the 4-year-old, you sit and you play with the 2-year-old. When she comes back, I'm so glad you're playing with us now. I like the way we can all share together because it's a lot more fun when you're here, right? Example for the when we were talking about hitting because I don't want to do my homework, right? Then you just say something to the effect of like, all right, man, you don't have to do your homework, but there's no computer, there's no screen time, there's no TV, there's nothing until you finish it. Let me know when you're ready. So the child doesn't get access to those other things that they want, right? They don't want to do homework because they'd rather be watching TV. They'd rather be playing a game with you, right? You don't have to yell, you don't have to scream. You just say, okay, I cannot make you do your math page. That is true. I can't, physically hand over hand make you do your multiplication. But what you can do is say, there's no other options right now until you're done, right? Or you could say something like, hey, it looks like you might need a break. If you can ask me for a break, maybe you can have 10 minutes of free time before you start, but make them engage in the behavior you want to see first.
Yeah.
Right. And don't give them that attention for that. And again, the same thing if we're talking about hitting me because you want to get me off the phone, right? I'm not getting off the phone. If I have to go into my bedroom to finish my phone call, I can then come out when I'm done without giving that negative attention. And next time you could say, you could always say, excuse me, if I'm talking to somebody and I can help you then. But hitting, probably won't get me off the phone. But if you say, excuse me, I need some help, I bet you I could put my phone call on hold. Again, don't give them what they want for that inappropriate behavior. Help them replace it with a more adaptive behavior.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have some chats here. I went to school when I was a boy.
How do I
kiss a boy when hitting and you got boy punishment? What will happen if you do? Hold on, let me see this again. I go to school when I was a little boy. I did.
I can clarify the question.
Yeah, that'd be great.
With John, maybe. And then maybe if you want to take Jessica's question in the meantime.
Perfect. How do I get to my daughter to leave the house on time? She can be completely ready, but continues to stall, says no, physically refusing to leave. She's almost 4. So Jessica, the nice thing about a 4-year-old at this point is you can just, without saying much, right? Let her know, you can absolutely let her know, like, my friend, we are leaving in 2 minutes. You're all ready. I'm so happy. You can either walk by yourself, right? Give her a choice. You can walk by yourself, which will be really easy, or I can just pick you up and take you, which may not be as fun. But she's 4 years old. Are you able to pick her up? And even Jessica, if you want to unmute yourself, I'm always happy to have a conversation for more details. But if she's 4 years old, you don't have to say much. I would limit the amount of conversation. You say, we're leaving in 2 minutes. I'd put a timer on my phone. When that 2-minute ding, say, are you going to walk by yourself or am I going to take you? You choose. Again, limiting the attention and then trying to figure it out. So.
And I unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Jessica, keep going.
Okay, great. So I've definitely done that, but I think where I go wrong is then I get emotionally invested and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to carry you out. And I know I fuel her fire. So I'm sure like 90% of what's going on is me. But like, even if I pick her up, that's when she'll start swinging or kicking or crying. Do you stop and address or let her cool down? Or do you just keep going and get her in the car seat any way you can?
Get her in that car seat. Now, again, you gave her a choice. Do you want me to take you? It's not going to be as fun or easy, or you can walk by yourself, and I would even, if you want to put in some sort of some motivating pieces in there, you know what, if you walk nicely to the car by yourself, maybe we can have a nice snack after school, or a snack in the car, or maybe we can have a fun breakfast tomorrow morning, right? But that's up to you. Anytime you can say, but that's up to you. It's your best friend. That is my favorite intervention. Okay, that's up to you, right? I'm giving you a choice. You can walk by yourself and, be a big girl, or I can take you. But again, when you take her, your light switch of attention off. You are a robot. You are picking her up, putting her in, buckling her in. Now, when she's in the car and she's calmed down, hopefully she calmed down at some point, that's when you say, wow, I like that you calmed down. Maybe we can listen to some music now. Right? Don't go back and be like, well, why did you get so upset? We go into the car every morning, but every morning you don't have to move on, right? Move on and just say, wow, I'm so glad you calmed down. Switch your light switch back on. You only should be functioning between positive and off, positive and off. Okay. It looks like you calmed down now. Hey, what music do you want to listen to this morning? I love when we can sing together. Right? Does that make sense, Jessica? Okay, perfect. And then there's a great question from Monica. I think that's Monica. My
Monica.
Chat is scrolling very fast. How can I get my 15-year-old son to do his classwork and homework? He's fallen behind a lot in school during lockdown, and I'm really worried. So, Monica, how much access to electronics does your child have?
Can you hear me? Hi.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. So a lot, because he has online school from 8:40 in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon, and then he's supposed to be doing homework after school.
And is anybody with him after school to help him to like sort of monitor that, or not at all?
Yeah, I am, but it ends up arguing, because I'll be like, okay, it's 3:30, have an hour break, go and do what you want to do. And then let's start at 4:30, 4:45, you can get back on and start doing your homework. But it'll be 4:30, like, Mauricio, come on, you need to come and do your work. And he'll just go into such a strop about it, and then we'll end up arguing about it. And
so what's he doing during that break? When he's
go on YouTube or watch some sort of anime or something like that.
Okay, so here's what you do. I feel like, unfortunately, we let the genie out of the bottle with electronics. That's a whole other topic, Debbie. And it's hard to get it back in. And I think our children at this point sort of feel like YouTube is a God-given right. I was born with the right to watch YouTube whenever I want. But electronics are actually a privilege, not a right? If I want to watch some Netflix at the end of the day, which I do want to watch, I'm in the middle of a really good show, I have to finish all my responsibilities first, right? I've got to do the shopping, I've got to do the cleaning, I've got to do my work, and then I can watch some Netflix. We have to be able to do the same thing with our children, that it is a right, not a privilege. And you have responsibilities to get access to privileges. So if he says, I don't want to do it, you say, all right, let me know when you're ready. You close the computer, you take it away from him, you change the internet password, you take away his phone, you take away the remote controls to the TV, and you just say, let me know when you're ready to finish your work. That's up to you.
Okay, and that I can still do that at 15.
At 15, let me ask you a question, Monica. Are you paying for the internet?
Yeah, I say that to him all the time.
if he's 35, and you're still paying for the internet, you got to control the internet. Okay. It is. Electronics are a privilege. They are not a God-given right.
Okay, that's great.
And your goal is to still take out the negative attention. You say, you know what? I love you. I don't want to fight with you about this. You're 15 years old. You just let me know when you're ready. I promise you, he's going to be in shock. right?
I'll do that.
Because
Okay.
you know what's, if I can't watch YouTube, you know what's the second most fun thing to do? Make my mom mad, annoy my mom. Right? If I can't watch YouTube, I might as well annoy my mom. So your job is to not give him any of that negative energy. You flip it off. Your attention goes off, and you just say, "Hey, bud, you let me know when you're ready." But give it 2 days, 2 days with zero YouTube, with zero TV, with zero phone, with zero computer. You just say, "You let me know when you're ready, man."
Okay.
And the truth is, after school, if he wants a break, great. But there's no electronics during that break. Go take a walk outside. Go, read a book. Do a puzzle. But if you want any electronics back, you just let me know when you're ready.
Okay. I'll do that.
And that's it. Nice and clean. And if you are consistent, he's going to scream. He's going to yell at you. I always prefer parents, right? Parents have this thing of like, I have to have the last word. If my kid says, "You're so mean," I have to turn around and say, "I'm not mean. I'm doing this because I love you." And because don't fall into their trap. They're like pulling you in, right? If they say something, "You're so mean," I would 100% prefer you to have all the electronics under your arm and you just walk into your room and close the door. Okay. I said this to my children last night. My thing is when I don't respond to my children, they know they're in trouble. So last night, my daughter made a comment that was a little bit it was a little, she was poking the bear, me being the bear. And so she said something that she knew would probably annoy me. And I didn't say a word. I just sat there and I kept eating. And she goes, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it to come out that way. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please accept my apologies. Please talk to me again." And I was like, "Oh, I appreciate your apology. Sure, let's move on." Right? My kids know that when I don't talk, they're in trouble.
They're in trouble. Okay, yeah.
Right? Which is also so my stress level doesn't go up, right? Because when my daughter brings it up here, I bring it down here. So I help her come down instead of sort of everyone one-upping everybody.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Thanks so much for your advice. I'll take that on.
Sure.
Thank you.
I feel like that's probably super applicable to pretty much every question we got in. It's just like not kind of, again, pouring fuel on the fire, like what you were saying. But I guess like I have questions about, I mean, it must have been a process for you to be able to kind of like disconnect from the emotions of the moment for a second to actually, use the scalpel instead of like the blunt tool. And so I guess like, do you have any, because everything is well and good when we're like discussing it in this format, but it's really hard to actually have that presence of mind in the moment. So do you have ways that parents can kind of develop those muscles?
Absolutely. I think it's hard. So I always say that I have a PhD in ignore. It's not fair. Like I have my PhD and it's basically in in ignoring problem behavior. So I have practiced it and I've practiced it on other people's children, which trust me, it's a lot easier to practice it on other people's children than your own. But I always find it very humbling. Parents really feel, right? We want our children to do their homework. We want our children to be polite. We want our children to stop tantrum. We want our children to stop hitting. We want our children to stop crying. There's so many behaviors that we want our children to do. And when I say to parents, okay, well, here's what I'd like for you to work on. Oftentimes I get this response of like, "Oh, I can't do that. That's so hard," right? So if we can't work on our own behavior, how can we expect our children's behavior to change when we have a fully formed frontal lobe, right? I feel like it really makes me very, it's a humbling experience when we say, "What I want my child to change, I want my child to change, I want my child to change," but it's really hard for me to change, right? It's a balancing act and it's an equation, right? I think of it really, your parent-child relationship is really an equation. You cannot make, as Monica was saying, she cannot make him do his homework, right? The only thing she can do is change her behavior, her side of the equation. And if she moves one side of the equation, the other side changes. So by changing your behavior, it will impact your child because you cannot physically change their behavior. The only thing you can do is change yours. So is that hard? Absolutely. Absolutely. Talking here to you right now, like, I know I make it sound so easy, easy peasy, just walk out of the room, but it is hard and it takes practice, and you're going to get it wrong, and you might get it wrong again, but it's something that you absolutely have to practice. Because again, if you think, well, I want my son to stop fighting me on homework and change his behavior, it's only fair to say that we have to change ours also. So that sort of like humbling equation helps me think of, if I'm expecting my child to work hard and change their behavior, I have to be willing to do the same thing, right? And that's where it's more of like a team effort, right? That we're all on the same team for this. So is it hard? Absolutely. Does it take practice? Absolutely. Are you going to mess up? Absolutely. But keep thinking about, what is your goal? Your goal is to establish a positive, foundationally strong relationship with your child. And that should be your motivation. And it takes practice.
100%. I see like a related question from Stephanie that says how you don't get stressed and keep your own stress levels down in general. I mean, all of us are.
No, I get stressed. I didn't say I didn't get stressed. Part of what I try to do is not show my kids my stress, right? I think being a parent, there is a good proportion of acting that goes into it. Right? Maybe you're exhausted at the end of the day, and your 8-year-old comes up and says, Mom, look at this cool, Star Wars Lego set that I just spent hours building. And you're so exhausted, right? But what do you have to rally to do? You have to genuinely say, oh my gosh, wow, that's really incredible. Thank you so much, right? I rallied last night when at a long day, 9 o'clock, my daughter says, Mom, I've been waiting for you to finish all of your patients. Can you please help me with math? Of course I'm going to help you with math. I would love to do that. Let's get this done, right? So part of it is acting, right? There's times when I am so mad inside, right? When my son is like having a tantrum at the table, I'm not calm. I'm presenting calm, but inside I'm like, come on, kid, you got to go to your room. Like, seriously, we have to do this again? But what do I say is different than what I'm, right? And then I speak to my support people, like, who's your tribe? You need to make sure you have your tribe. And then after that interaction with my kid, that night, I find my tribe, that's usually my husband, and I go, can you flip and believe that he did it again tonight? Seriously? He knows what's going to happen. Like, why is he doing this over, right? And so I think most importantly for that stress, you need an outlet, and you need to find your tribe. And that's incredibly important for all of this, so that you can, again, think about what's going to be helpful for you to support, so that in that moment, you can have some clarity of knowing of, here's what I need to do. And again, if you are really good about being consistent of having the same response over and over, oftentimes what's really stressful for parents is trying to sort of like draw straws, like, what do I do this time? What do I do this time? What do I do this time? Now what am I supposed to say? Now what am I supposed to do? As opposed to the two questions that we had, like with Monica, the response is always, okay, let me know when you're ready. If you know what to say regularly and you're not always trying to think about what to do on the fly, that decreases stress. Or the other example with Jessica, with getting your child out to the car. If you know every morning you're going to say, hey friend, are you going to walk by yourself and get a really fun snack after school? Or am I going to take you? You choose. That's what you say every morning. And every morning when she says, I'm not doing it, you're just taking her, you're putting her in, you're not talking to her, you buckle her in, right? Once you have a plan of what you're going to do and you can be consistent with it, oftentimes that's also decreases stress in parents, because it's not always thinking of like, well, should I try this time? Should I try this time, this way this time? Should I try this? Because that's also stressful in the moment to try to problem solve on the fly.
I think that's such a great point in terms of like actually having kind of a go-to like technique that you're using every time, instead of trying to figure, because sometimes it does also get into like, I remember there was like a specific thing I was supposed to say in this situation, and it just doesn't come to mind. And
think about what you're going to do and try it for a week, right? Don't try it for one day. Oh, it didn't work today. Try it for 5 to 7 days and see if it makes a difference. If it doesn't, great. Now try to do something else and see if that makes a difference for 5 to 7 days. But doing something for once, oftentimes you're going to see a spike in problem behavior, especially if it's working. If you see a spike because you try something different, that generally means it's working, because then you'll see the decrease, right? I always use the soda machine example. You put your money in the soda machine, you get your soda, you put your money in, you push the button, you get your soda. You put your money in, you push the button, you don't get your soda. What do? You push, start shaking it, start cursing, start yelling. And at some point you realize it's broken and then you walk away. So you see an increase in problem behavior of pushing the button before you just walk away. Same thing with your kids, right? Right? I would expect that with Jessica, our little friend there is going to start, going way crazy first and then realizing that's not working. This sucks. I'm exhausted. And then I'm not getting any attention. I'm not getting delayed of being put in a car. What I want is not working. Oh, well, I might as well stop. Right? So I would expect an increase. That's why you have to do it for, 3 to 7 days to actually see if what you've decided to try is going to have an impact on the behavior. So don't be discouraged if you see a spike and be like, oh my gosh, that was the total wrong thing to do. Not necessarily. It actually might mean that it's working, which is super counterintuitive.
And then I had like 2 follow-up questions on that. So one is how we adjust these things for like maybe younger children as young as like 2 years old, where maybe, I don't know, that actually you would be the best person to tell us whether that same process still works. And then the other question was actually like, often, like you said, there are multiple caregivers and you and your husband had pretty different reactions. So how do you get on the same page with your partner or whoever else is caregiving for your child to like respond in this way?
So I'll start with the second one first, because I think that's a really important question. My goal as a psychologist and a child psychologist is to always have parents on the same page. That's always my goal. And if I can do that, we see a change in behavior across all caregivers, which is what we want to see. But I also have parents who are like, nah, not going to do it. Like, one parent is super motivated and follows everything that we talk about to the T. And the other parent is just like, nah, it's too hard. Can't do it. I just had a patient yesterday who did that, where the child tantrums, the child screams, right? Mom is like on the money. She's doing exactly what we say. And I'll say, how's behavior going? She's like, with me, like, she never bites anymore. She doesn't tantrum anymore. It's gone. And I said, how's dad? It's still totally there with dad. So then that's dad's job to like clean it up, right? So the nice thing about kids, for the most part, they're smart enough to know with who they can act in what way, right? They know it's not like, oh, it's super confusing for our children if, mom does this and dad does that. Sure, I'd like for everything to be on the same page, but if I have a parent who doesn't do it, hopefully they just realize over time, like, wow, with this parent, I'm not seeing much, but with this parent, I am. If they want it to change, they have to change their own behavior, right? This is, where so many parents say, well, here's my child. I just want you to meet my child. Please fix him. Please fix her. I can't do that. It's not possible. I need your help, right? Parents are the ones who are seeing, you see me for once a week for 45 minutes. I wish I had sort of magic powder, but I don't. But when I find it, I'll share it specifically with this group first. Don't worry. But the truth is, if you have the tools in your toolbox as parents, then your child gets therapy 24/7 for free. And that's the goal, is that once you have those tools in the toolbox, you can figure out what to do. And kids are smart enough to know, hey, I can act this way with mom, this way with dad. I will tell you that when my mother comes into town, she is the anti-behavioralist. It's just like free for all, right? And it's great. And they love her and they love when she comes into town. We haven't seen her in a year. We really miss her. But all bets are off. It's ice cream for dinner. It's, brownies for breakfast. But when my mom leaves, sheriff's back in town, and we go back to our structure. And that's okay to have some flexibility too, to know that, oh, when I go to grandma's house, like, all rules are off. When, dad's in charge, I have to do it this way. When mom's in charge, this way. When other mom's in charge, whatever your family makeup is, that with each parent, kids are pretty savvy of knowing what they can sort of, how to act with each person. And similarly at school, I see a lot of parents say, my child's an angel at school. They know there's no problem behavior. what's going on? But like at home, they're like the devil. Again, because there's certain structures and certain structure at school that you don't have at home. And your child is savvy enough to know how to interact in those different environments. I think the second question was age difference. These same core concepts, whether your child's 15, whether your child's 2, they're applicable to everything, right?
Okay.
Your 15-year-old's engaging in behaviors to get access to electronics, trying to get out of homework, and trying to get your attention. Although when you get to the adolescent, sometimes they actually want that negative attention. So you have to be even more vigilant not to give it to them, because they're looking to sort of like stick you a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I guess where that was coming from was this idea of like, it feels like there's some sort of like logic process happening. I mean, I don't even know to what extent this happens consciously for a child, saying like, I'm going to act out so that I get more from you. And then when I realize that doesn't happen, then that's like something I decide not to do versus something that just kind of happens.
Well, again, it's just not functional.
Yeah.
If I cry and I don't get a lollipop, unless I say, can I please have a lollipop? 2-year-olds learn this from a very young age, right? I will tell you that again, my poor children have been my guinea pigs through all of my doctoral training. With my third child, the first word I taught them, right, was help. It wasn't mama, it wasn't dada, it wasn't ball, it was help. So that if they were reaching for something, I would say, help, help, help. And they were these like little tykes. They must have been, 12, 13, 14, 15 months. And they would just be standing there going, help, help, help,
So
help.
cute.
It was cute. And my mother-in-law was like, what are they saying? Roseanne, what did you teach them? I said, instead of crying about something, if they just stand there and go, help, help, I come running. So as young as that, they were able to know that if they said, help, 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 I would come running and say, what can I help you with? Right? I know it's really mean, really cruel, but
No, not at all. That's so sweet.
But it was very cute that they knew that if they said help, 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 as opposed to crying and screaming, right? Instead of crying and screaming, bringing me into the room, they say help, help, help. I come running into the room, right? Again, the underlying concept of what they want is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
What is sort of off and not matching is the way they're getting access to what they want. Are you going to get access to it through crying and having a tantrum? Are you going to get access to it through more adaptive behaviors and more adaptive means?
So I know we have 6 minutes, so I won't ask the question of like, okay, what happens if what they want is actually something you like can't give or shouldn't give, which is like,
oh my gosh, we have to have a whole nother, we have to schedule another one for that one, Pooja.
I mean, I would love to do that, so we will book that in. But then but then the other question I had was like, there were a couple of questions around sort of maybe extenuating circumstances, whether like that frustration is coming from slower speech development or from potentially anxiety, like so. And feel free to say like, you need more help if this is the case, but just wanted to give the chance to answer those questions as well.
Absolutely. There absolutely is a higher level of, let's talk about the speech delay. A lot of times that problem behavior is coming from the fact that they can't communicate, right? It all comes down to how do I communicate my needs? And if I can't communicate my needs to you clearly, I'm going to then be frustrated and try to do whatever means I can. Okay, so that makes complete sense, right? That I cannot, again, it comes back to communication of needs. If we can't communicate our needs and we can't have our actions get us what we need, of course there's going to be a level of frustration there and potentially problem behavior. And then that's where you see, right, that then someone starts screaming, right? I can't say the word water, right? I can't say the word milk because I have some sort of language concern. And then the child starts just screaming and tantruming, and you see a parent come over and say, what do you want? Do you want milk? Do you want water? Do you want this? So what does the child learn? That if I scream, someone comes over and says, gives me a whole menu of items. Now, even those children who have challenges or delays, there are ways that we can help them to communicate their needs. And it's vitally important that we do that ASAP to find the best communicative strategy for them so they don't get to that frustration tolerance, because their needs are just as important as any of our needs are. Okay, but it doesn't mean that that they are relegated to being upset and screaming and tantruming to get what they want, because that's also not fair. We can't expect that. Of course, we can expect them to have some sort of communicative strategy, whether that's pictures, whether that's sign language, whether that's an augmentative device, whether that's some sort of vocal approximation. But yes, that communication of needs is vitally important to, number one, ensure that there is a level of independence, and it doesn't expect them to resort to problem behavior. With the example of anxiety, again, that's where usually we see anxiety in older-ish children, meaning 7, 8, 9 is where that really starts. Sometimes we'll see significant anxiety before that. But part of anxiety, right, if we're not talking about medication, part of anxiety is just exposure to the stimulus that's making anxiety and helping them habituate to that, helping them get used to that, that sort of their irrational thinking about that, right? I'm gonna fail a test. That helping them, right? Again, that's a little bit of an older child, helping them get used to that feeling of, okay, what if you fail a test? What's the big deal if you fail a test? Did you try your hardest? Right? Sort of thinking about where is that coming from and how can we help them get used to some of those anxious feelings. Again, if we're not talking about, I'm not talking about medication options, right? That's for a psychiatrist to determine if that's appropriate. But if we're talking about it from what can parents do, it's again, not feeding into that anxiety. It's still a communicative behavior of, I need help with something. I'm not able to deal with this. And how can we help and support them?
Okay. Awesome. Well, unless the chat is still open if anyone wants to ask a question in the last minute, but otherwise I'm really excited. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Lesack. And I would love to set up that follow-up on actually helping parents with setting boundaries and what a child wants to avoid or wants to acquire is actually.
There's so much to talk about. I'd be happy to. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. It was really, hopefully these were helpful. And again, why? Figure out the why first, and then stay tuned. We'll talk about what to do about it.
Thank you so much, Roseanne. Really appreciate your time.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day, evening, wherever you are.
Oh, and sorry, one more thing is that we will be sending out the recording of this webinar plus a recap and anything in future if you've signed up for the email list when you registered for the event. So you will get the recap of this as well. Thanks, everyone.